Hey folks, Roland Martin here. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Today, of course, is December 6, 2018. I am broadcasting live from New York City. We have a packed show for you folks. And guess what? Republicans continue their assault on democracy all across the country, especially in North Carolina, where they passed a voter ID law. Also, they want to put Republicans in charge of all election boards. They ignored election fraud. We'll break it all down for you. Chicago cops covered up and lied about the murder of Laquan McDonald on trial as we speak. With a blue wall of silence be torn down, we will have that issue discussed on the show. Plus, the Howard University Medical School, source of the greatest number of African-American doctors in America, is under threat in Washington, D.C. We will talk to the dean of the medical school and a city councilman trying to protect him. Also in the program, the first elected, the next mayor of Little Rock, Arkansas, Frank Scott Jr. He is not the first black mayor of the city. We're going to clear that confusion up for you. We'll talk to him on the show. Plus, the Golden Globe nominations are out today, and black themed movies did well, including Black Panther. And folks, to hear the speech Viola Davis gave in Hollywood, where she broke it down about the issue of power and the issue of race. Plus, Tyler Perry as a Christmas present for some folks in Atlanta. It's a pretty good one. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Folks, many of you may ask the question, why do we spend so much time talking about what is happening in North Carolina, what the Republicans are doing there? It is because what they are doing in North Carolina is setting the case for the rest of the country. Yesterday, the GOP-controlled legislature passed a new restrictive voter ID law. And folks, not only are they doing it in a lame duck session, they're doing it because they lose their supermajority in January because Democrats picked up seats on November 6th. Now, a supermajority means they can override the governor's veto. Come January, they will not be able to override the Democratic governor's veto. Now, what also is happening there, talk about what is crazy, not content to keep African Americans and the poor people and young folks from voting in North Carolina. These Republicans, what they have done is they are considering a bill that, listen to this, folks, that will require every county's election board to be chaired by a member of the party with the highest number of registered voters in odd number years and by a member of the party with the second highest number of registered voters in even numbered years. So in essence, they're trying to ensure the Republicans control the election boards. Sounds fair? It is not. Since North Carolina has more registered Democrats than Republicans, and since elections occur in even numbered years, Republicans would be in charge of every election board in every election year. Now, the continuing election fraud investigation in North Carolina's 9th Congressional District has gotten so bad that even the executive director of the state Republican Party thinks there might need to be a new election. But only, he says, if there are enough disputed votes that will change the outcome. Here's a fact. The law giving the State Board of Elections the right to call a new election does not require that. Now, the margin was under 1,000 votes. And so far, there have been more than 1,000 irregular ballots discovered. Today, Democratic candidate Dan McCready withdraws his concession, saying he thinks Republican Dan Harris knew about the fraud and bankrolled it. And Republican officials had early warnings of voting irregularities in North Carolina, but ignored them. I guess they don't care about the integrity of elections. I want to go to our panel. Dr. Greg Carr, Chair of Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. Teresa Lundy, she's the founder of TML Communications. Eugene Craig, CEO of the Eugene Craig Organization. All right, folks, let's get right into it. When you look at what is happening here, again, to somehow play this game of even numbered years, odd number years, that's who chairs it. I mean, they are blatant. Republicans are blatant, Greg, in North Carolina with what they're doing. And what's amazing to me is all of a sudden national media is paying attention because of what's happening in Wisconsin. The Republicans have been doing this in North Carolina since 2008, when massive black turnout led to Barack Obama winning that state in the presidential election.
Absolutely. And they've been planning it for much longer with billionaires like Robert Mercer and the Koch brothers. The GOP is the HIV of the American body politic. They're a permanent virus. They can only be suppressed, but the only way you suppress them is by overwhelming them in numbers. What they've piloted in North Carolina and begun to get away with in the previous election cycle is trying to maintain power. They don't care about democracy, they care about rule. And this odd year, even year business that you just described is Exhibit A. What we saw last night with the all-night the all-night legislative move in Wisconsin, what we're seeing in Michigan, North Carolina is their template. And they plan these things through ALEC. They've been doing this. And so if they get away with this, brother, you know, it's got to go to the courts. And then we see why elections matter at the federal level, because they're going to try to run this through the federal courts and have their fascists back it with the stench of their illegal reading of the Constitution.
Teresa, when you look at what's going on here, I mean, to show people how really evil this is, they don't care. I mean, they of course stripped the governor of powers in the last term. What they're doing here is they're basically saying to the voters, we don't care what you decide. We don't care how you decide. We're going to essentially rig elections in our favor. This is election rigging
at its finest. And so what we're seeing right now is the GOP is in a fluxure of trying to figure out what to do next. As we have 2020 come up, I think everybody now is at the basis of strategy and what they need to do to make sure African Americans and other minority communities are not being hurt. As we saw, this is one tactic that I know that the discussion has been going on with a lot of political operatives in terms of what states we need to identify in order to silence some of that messaging and also try to figure out new strategies. But again, 2020 is right around the corner, and I think what we're seeing right now is a turning point for some of these districts.
Bottom line, Eugene, what Democrats should do, Democrats should be hell-bent on swinging every possible way. This is why you cannot ignore any small little thing. This is why you can't just treat them with respect, because what we're seeing in North Carolina, what we're seeing in Wisconsin, what we're seeing in Michigan is that Republicans are not caring about democracy. They're not caring about the will of the voters. This is a naked power grab.
Absolutely, I agree 100% with you. And as the saying goes, you know, power can cease to nothing except, you know, a bigger power, and that's what's going on here with these Republicans and these select states and a couple other states. Now, particularly in North Carolina, I think it's very rich that, you know, they passed a voter ID law during essentially a lame duck session, when, you know, you literally have Republicans committing voter fraud, which, you know, folk have been ringing the bell on for the last 10 years and now gone extremely silent, to the point where the executive director that ousted the first black chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party is now out, you know, talking about a potential new election.
The thing here that also I think is important for people to understand is that what we're seeing, Greg, we're seeing black folks who are moving back to the South in significant numbers. And what is happening is these Republicans are scared to death of this kind of turnout. And so they are trying their best to somehow rig the election using legal practices. But the reality is Democrats should be trying to use every legal instrument to stop them in the courts. But unfortunately, that takes a lot of time. And then they don't always rule, saying that, well, we can't change a district. Like, for instance, the court said, hey, we need to change these districts. We don't want to change it with the election already underway.
That's right. North Carolina is a great example. As you say, the North Carolina Supreme Court, which is elected statewide, currently has a 4-3 Democratic majority. While they're technically nonpartisan, Wisconsin is a 4-3 Republican majority. But they can count. And this, make no mistake about it, ALEC, the American Legislative Executive Council, has been coordinating this at the federal level as well. So what you see is, as they look at these numbers, we're winning the local races. You're going to talk, of course, to the new mayor-elect of Little Rock, Birmingham. Same campaign folks that helped Randall Wolford in Birmingham helped this brother in Little Rock. You're seeing it, the power begin to emerge at the local levels, but they're trying to game this system. If they can get it past 2020, as Teresa said, because that's when the federal census is going to be had. And, you know, we just came out of a trial now with Wilbur Ross and them trying to game the census with this citizenship question, so that they can get these numbers counted. And then at the state level, if you can gerrymander correctly, you can hold on to power even after folks have replaced some of these legislators. They are coordinating at the state, federal, and local level. But yeah, they can count just like we can, but we need to be able to count and then go out and make that count mean something with votes.
I simply want our people to understand why I have been focusing on North Carolina for the past 8 years. On Washington Watch, on News One Now, and now Roland Martin Unfiltered. And I'm glad to see national media finally wake the hell up, because this is why you've got to have platforms like this, because what they've been doing is focusing on D.C. Anything Trump says, any comment that he makes, but this issue is important. Now let's talk about what is happening in D.C., and that is some of the young bucks in Congress, they want to impose term limits on committee chairs. So this has been going on for quite some time. Now, the likely incoming Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, has floated the idea that committee chairmen may have to give up their seats after a certain period of time, that may force out members of the Congressional Black Caucus, who this year will get to take over some very important committees. Now, I want to start with you, Eugene. What's interesting here is that the CBC, what they're essentially saying is like, well, time out. We've been playing by the rules, waiting in line. And then all of a sudden, now y'all want to tell us there are term limits. And this is where the CBC has to flex its muscle, being the largest caucus from the Democratic Party. This is why they say, hell no, ain't going to happen. I don't care what many of you young bucks have to say.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think, you know, some of the CBC members should have been given committee chairmanships a long time ago. I do know there's a seniority system in Congress on both houses, but that will go without saying that there is precedent within both chambers for term limits on chairmanships, particularly on the committees on intelligence and the oversight committee. Both of them, I believe, have like a 2-term chairman term limit. I believe Ways and Means as well.
Well, Teresa, look, this is about power as well. And so what African Americans are saying is like, wait a minute, we finally get to assume power, and now y'all want to tell us and shove us aside?
Right. And yes, it's well overdue, but I mean, personally, I'm not so for, I'm okay with term limits, because I see it a lot in my state of Pennsylvania, where we do, you know, there's 4-year terms, but, you know, people are still in office for 30 years plus. And as they have been, you know, elected to CBC, you know, to serve in those capacities, about time, it is time for them to get to a senior level position. It's kind of over by a certain point. So I'm not saying I disagree, but I think the process of the way it's being done is a little disconcerting.
But Greg, look, this is about power. And so for African Americans, again, being political sharecroppers, and then folks who say, well, you know what, you got to have a certain number of years here. Here's the other piece. It's not like the Democrats are guaranteed to somehow control the House for the next 10 years.
That's right. You know, although let's take Michigan, for example. The young sister Talib was coming in from the Detroit area. Very excited about her energy, her passion, along with Ocasio-Cortez, of course, this young sister from Massachusetts, Yana. Well, let's think about this. When John Conyers ran into trouble and left his seat last year, I immediately thought to myself, that was the incoming chair of the Judiciary Committee. And so, you know, we got Benny Thompson for sure. You have Elijah Cummings for sure. Maxine Waters, of course, who's going to get these tax returns from Trump, among other things, for sure. But But, you know, the seniority game, as you said, this is about power. Understand how Lyndon Johnson got legislation passed through the Senate in the 1960s. Understand how Jesse Helms and the Southern Dixiecrats held power for so long. If you're in Congress long enough, you end up running these committees. And just when we get to the point where there's a notion that there's going to be black folks in power, when the Democrats have a majority, they want to change the rules. The only other thing I'd say is the CBC is going to have to vote as a block. I'm not sure about Hakeem Jeffries. Again, a corporate Dem who's sometimes liberal, sometimes not. We saw what happened with the vote against Barbara Lee. Barbara Lee should have had that position. But again, you've got CBC members who are thinking perhaps about their personal advancement, about how they can leverage this moment for their personal gain, instead of thinking about us as a block. And you've made this point, and others on this show have made this point over and over again. That becomes a legitimate problem when we can't think as a unit on certain things. And on this one, we need to think as a unit.
If I can add, if Nancy Pelosi is going to consider term limits for committee chairs, I think you cannot properly provide a plan like that without also assigning term limits to your House caucus leadership as well.
Well, we shall see. All right, folks, let's hear a word from one of our partners who makes this show, Roland Martin Unfiltered, possible. And that is, we want you to write this website down, please. It's marijuanastock.org, marijuanastock.org. And here's why. As we transition into the holiday season, this time we start thinking about giving and sharing. Sometimes the best gift that you can give someone is an opportunity that could potentially change their lives. That's why our friends at Transatlantic Real Estate have created an investment opportunity for the everyday investor. It involves legal marijuana and crowdfunding. Now, we all know that legal marijuana has created one of the fastest growing industries in this country. We also know that crowdfunding makes it easy to be an early investor of an opportunity. Now, it's no brainer, folks. Here, this is very simple, but it gets even better. Transatlantic Real Estate is different, and they have a business model that is very simple to understand. They buy land that supports marijuana grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. Don't you hear that? You are investing in the landlord of a licensed marijuana farm in a high-growth market. Now, for a limited time, you can invest as little as $300 up to $10,000 before the company goes public. Now, here's some more good news. They have recently extended the offer, which means you still have time if you take action now. Keep in mind, you must complete and confirm your application to participate, so be sure to complete that process. Folks, don't spend all of your money over the holidays and end up with empty pockets. Instead, get a return on your investment. You could also consider making an investment for someone special. How's that for a holiday gift? To get started, go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org for you to get in the game and do it today. All right, now, folks, Little Rock, Arkansas, of course, a southern city, and that was a runoff election took place, did not get lots of attention, but guess what? They have elected a black mayor there in Little Rock, Arkansas. He joins us right now, Mayor-elect Frank Scott. Mayor, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Fred. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Well, you see, that's right, because this is Alpha Week, so you see I'm sitting here rocking the black and old gold today. And let's deal with this first, because all of these stories, I mean, everybody's been writing these stories saying you're the first black mayor of Little Rock. That's not true.
Correct. I am the first popularly elected black mayor of Little Rock. We have to always pay homage to the history of the late Charles Bussey and now former Mayor Lottie Shackelford, who were both elected as city directors under a city management form of government and later appointed mayor. But I'm the first popularly elected mayor of this great city and understand the historical relevance of that.
So with this winning the runoff election, what are your plans for the city of Little Rock?
Well, the plans right now, we ran on a message of unifying this great city, helping us to move from being disconnected to connected. But we have some serious crime issues that we have to focus on. So I'm planning to make certain that we increase our police force. But while we increase our police force, that we have a greater focus on cultural competency, de-escalation tactics, and understanding of implicit biases. And as we move from public safety, we also want to focus on job creation here in this great city. Growing up here, being a true son, we've had a lot of our citizens who have decided to move from this city to move to cities like Memphis, Atlanta, and Houston because they felt like they couldn't thrive here. And so I want to make certain that we create a more business-friendly opportunity here for our small business entrepreneurs, having a great focus on minority and women owned businesses here as well, but recruiting more business to come for the foreseeing future.
And so when we talk about you now joining the ranks of mayors there, it's also about how do you drive economics. And so here you are in a southern city. And so how do you propose that? I mean, how do you tell that story to get businesses to consider moving their operations to Little Rock, Arkansas?
Well, we definitely have to take some more risk as we move forward in doing job creation. Many people don't realize that FedEx actually started in the city of Little Rock. But the forefathers and the foremothers of the city of Little Rock did not want at the time to give FedEx and Fred Smith a dedicated hangar. And so it's so many different types of business.
Wait a minute. FedEx started in Little Rock, Arkansas?
Yes, sir. It started in Little Rock, Arkansas, but wasn't able to grow in Little Rock, Arkansas, and later moved to the city of Memphis, where I actually went to college and definitely understood the impact that it had on the city of Memphis from a generational standpoint. But yes, it did start in the city of Little Rock, but the forefathers and foremothers that were a part of the Little Rock Airport Commission at that time did not want to give Fred Smith a dedicated hangar. And after that happened, because as you know, different entrepreneurs definitely have to take certain risks and have to grow, he decided to move to the city of Memphis, and Memphis was able to give him those type of resources. And once that happened, as you know, you've been to the city of Memphis, but now with the FedEx Forum, not only FedEx, you have AutoZone, International Paper, and things of that nature. So what we want to do is make certain that we have a business-friendly environment here in the city of Little Rock, that we take some calculated risk with entrepreneurs so they can grow here, have a greater focus on minority women-owned businesses, but also focus now on technology innovation. We firmly believe that the next few companies are not going to be companies that we recruit from the outside, but companies that we grow from within the inside, so we can create a farm team right here in our great city. We really want to kind of be more of the Middle South.
Well, I'm sure there's some people in Little Rock who are cursing the names of those folks who had the audacity to run FedEx away because Memphis has certainly benefited to the tune of billions of dollars as a result of FedEx being in their city.
Yes, sir.
Last question for you, Mayor. What do you also want to say to the next generation of folks who are not necessarily considering a life in public service?
Well, the next generation, I want to make sure everyone knows that anything is possible as long as you put some hard work. Three things that I've always learned from one of my great mentors is I always prepare for the day, push through life circumstances, and always pay it forward. I think this is a dream of mine that I've had since I was a young kid, that I would dream to lead my city. It just happens that I've had that opportunity, which is a huge responsibility. I'm looking forward to live out this dream. So every dream is possible with a little hard work.
All right, then. Well, Mayor, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, and happy belated Founders Day.
All right, then, 06. Good to have you on the show. Thanks a lot, and I look forward to seeing you when I come to Little Rock.
Yes, sir.
All right, then. Thanks a lot. All right, folks. Let's talk about everything in Chicago, of course. It's a sad, sad story. I repeated it many times. A police officer shoots an African-American, and the cops lie about what actually happened. But maybe, just maybe, 3 Chicago cops, they paid the price for lying about the death of Laquan McDonald. Remember, it was in October of 2014 when McDonald was shot and killed by Chicago police officer Jason Van Dyke. In October, Van Dyke was convicted of second-degree murder and 16 counts of aggravated battery with a firearm. Right after the shooting, police officers say McDonald was charging towards them when the shots were fired. Well, body cam footage released 13 months later, dashboard footage showed that to be an absolute lie. Now, 3 former Chicago police officers are currently on trial for lying about the incident and trying to cover it up. Shattering the so-called blue wall, or at least making cops think twice about lying about officer-involved shootings, could save the lives of many folks. I want to go to our panel right now. And Teresa, I want to start with you. Okay, I'm sorry. So do we have Kathy Chaney? Okay, I'm sorry. So I did not get the update. So Brandon Pope joins us. Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing good, Roland. How you doing this morning? Or this afternoon?
I'm doing great. So the trial started. Give us a sense of what has been happening in the courtroom. Have we seen other Chicago cops there providing moral support, providing security to these lying officers?
Well, Roland, that trial is still going on right now as we speak, as closing arguments are underway for the defense. Lots of cops are showing up, but lots of cops are also taking the stand against these three officers as well, and that's been a big topic of conversation. You mentioned that blue wall of silence. The superintendent of police here, Eddie Johnson, he's denied emphatically that there is even the existence of a blue wall of silence, but we're seeing this picture that the prosecution is painting. They're basically saying that the matching police reports mean that these three officers, David March, Joseph Walsh, and Thomas Gaffney, all conspired to cover up for Jason Van Dyke, and that this went all the way up high in the rankings with the Detectives Bureau. That's what the prosecution's alleging. The defense saying these are just innocent mistakes on these reports, and also that it's a battle of perception versus reality.
And what we're dealing with here, again, is these cops. What happened with Laquan McDonald, the cops lied. They even were changing testimony. There was a woman, police officer, who testified that when she saw the document, she said, wait a minute, I didn't say that. Then all of a sudden they tried to basically say she was pretty much an idiot who couldn't find the job elsewhere. This was her only hope. And so it has been very weird to watch cops attack other cops. And I'm just wondering how those cops are going to be received when they go back into the workforce, because we know police officers don't like it when other cops testify against them.
Yeah, lots of discrediting of the witnesses. That's been a big strategy by the defense. And matter of fact, that cop you're talking about, she said that she's not been able to return to normal officer duty. She's had to stay on desk duty because officers that she works with have told her, if something happens out there, you're out there, we're not going to come and back you up. So she's fearful to even fully operate her duties. And that kind of shows she's painting a picture of like what this code of silence really is like. And anyone that kind of goes against it, is threatened basically with not having protection and backup from their fellow officers. That's a daunting thing to think about. And it really shows how systemic this could really be.
All right, Brandon Pope, WCIU TV reporter and anchor. We sure appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right. Happy Founders Day.
Absolutely. So I want to go to you, Greg, on this issue again. When we talk about these lying cops, what people have to understand is that these three have been busted. They're on trial. But for the most part, cops do not go on trial when they lie. And we have seen story after story after story when they lie about there are people who are in prison for years because of a lying cop.
That's exactly right. And in the Laquan McDonald case, it's particularly egregious because the videotape is incontrovertible. Certainly Van Dyke went to jail, he's been convicted, he's going to jail. But the strategies are always the same. First of all, they rarely go to trial, or they rarely go to court. When they do go to court, the police ask for a bench trial so they can get a judge. And as soon as this case, as soon as the prosecutor has mounted their case, the defense may very well ask for the case to be thrown out. They won't put anybody on the stand, and they'll take that gamble. Meanwhile, as we just heard Brother Pope say, the police, the criminal enterprise dimension of police, of law enforcement in Chicago, is threatening this sister who is saying, look, I'm trying to do the right thing. This is why we need community control. That's why we need community review boards. And one more time, and I'll end with this. This is why, again, elections matter. In my hometown of Nashville, my brother Jeff helped lead that campaign in Nashville. They've got now a civilian review board in Nashville, Tennessee. Why? Because the citizens have finally decided we can't leave this up to the courts. And that's what we have to do at the local level. You know, we have to do that kind of work to involve ourselves in this. Otherwise, this criminal enterprise is going to continue.
Teresa, I keep saying, a police officer lies, automatically fired. They should lose their jobs.
Not only their jobs, they should lose their pension or at least a portion of it. I think a lot of times these cops feel like they're being protected. Like Rob said in the video, and the reporter has said that a lot of them, you know, really just feel safe. They feel safe in their positions. They don't necessarily cover each other as you would think they would, especially with the young officer who, you know, basically was approached, you know, a few times probably by her fellow members saying, I don't feel safe in this position, you know. So if there is an issue, and we don't know if she has a family or not, but, you know, she may not go home to them. So I think a lot of times as we, you know, are looking at the systematic changes, I agree with Brother Greg in terms of the community needing to find their voice in the prosecutorial process, and also making sure that that not only the word is being heard, but making sure that community policing actually takes place and their voice is there. So,
Eugene?
You know, I am a proponent of you lie, you get fired. You cause the city to have to settle, that should come directly, the settlement should come directly out of the police pension fund. But I think we need to go a step further. I think police need to carry malpractice insurance, and it's going to be absolutely mandatory. I mean, it would trigger an automatic risk assessment, and risky police officers would be uninsurable, in which, you know, if you tie the need for malpractice insurance with the profession of policing, police officers that are high risk would not be insured and would not be out in the streets. I think that's a critical step to reforming how we police in this country. But I agree with my other two panelists. Elections matter. The quickest way to change the way a city police or a police department's police is to change the leadership and put the pressure on the new leadership to come in and say, hey, listen, you got to clean up this police department. Don't just change out the chief. Don't just change out the mid-level command. You have to actually come in and maybe at some point in time even fire the entire department, rehire the good cops, let the bad cops go. That's not even a touch on Leobor.
I do keep saying, when you make cops financially responsible for their own bad doing, it's amazing how that tends to change their attitudes. All right, folks, let's talk about a huge story that's been blowing up in Washington, D.C., the Howard University Medical School. Of course, they graduate more black doctors than any medical school in the country. And the Washington, D.C. government wants to and needs to build a new hospital in the section of the city mostly populated by African Americans. But the hospital they have chosen to build this new facility does not really want to allow doctors and staff from the Howard University Hospital to work at the new hospital. The folks at Howard University believe this will threaten the very existence of this medical school, crucial to the African American medical community. Joining us right now is Trayon White, the D.C. council member who proposed an amendment that would include Howard University in the hospital plan, and the dean of the Howard University Medical College, Dr. Hugh Mighty. Councilman, I want to start with you. And so, first of all, where did this idea come from? And how much power is being ceded to the hospital as opposed to the city saying, wait a minute, the Howard doctors should have credentials and the right to practice at this new hospital?
Thanks, Roland. I think it goes back to the history of trying to draw partners to an area that's been underserved and under-resourced for a long time. And I think with that, the government, we rallied to put $300 million into this particular project. And with that, it became more attractive. I believe that, to my knowledge, Howard submitted not one, I think 2 or 3 proposals that did not get favored, and University Health Services put a proposal up as well, in which the government deemed more stronger. I don't know. I don't negotiate that, but that started a conflict. Howard felt they were not getting the support they needed to ensure that their doctors were able to participate in this new hospital coming to the east end of the city.
And so, what was the decision made yesterday? Because I was contacted by the president of Howard University, other officials. They were, of course, a strong social media focus. So, what happened yesterday? What was the decision of the city council?
So yesterday, Councilmember Gray, who was leading this effort since he was the mayor of Washington, D.C., helped to facilitate the conversation on the dais of what should happen with the hospital. At the end of the conversation, I put forth an amendment to ensure that Howard had the opportunity that their doctors can practice there and also do training there. That bill got passed unanimously. And also, Councilmember Lissa Silverman put up a bill that ensured that the workers there were unionized. But at the end of the day, Councilmember Vincent Gray tabled the whole bill into the next council cycle, which takes place on the 18th of December.
Dr. Hugh Mighty, why has Howard reacted in such a visceral way to this new hospital?
Good evening. Thank you. Howard currently has the responsibility for training 740 black physicians. We train the largest number of black physicians in this country. And for realistically 150 years, we have been here serving this city and being a safety net hospital for the city. So there are 2 things to think about for our city. One is Councilmember White did a very strong and brave thing for us by introducing that amendment to the bill to ensure that Howard gains access. The reason Howard needs to gain access to the new hospital is that 1/3 of the patients who are now seen by Howard will be moving to that new hospital when the hospital comes online. Howard needs to have those patients to continue to train its students and residents. And so if there's an exclusive thing done where Howard University doesn't have access to that, you're, one, threatening the existence of the current Howard University hospital, and ultimately you're threatening the ability of Howard to train its students and its residents, i.e. the ability to produce Black doctors in the, not just for the district, but in the nation. So there are two things at work here. One is certainly we support a new hospital. The citizens in Southeast DC deserve a new hospital where they can get care close at home to them. But we oppose the thought that the new hospital means that Howard can't be a part to deliver that. So you can't exclusively say you can't have academics and the hospital. We think you can have both.
So Councilman White, what's next? How does this fully get resolved?
So I read a statement that University Health Services issued today from GW saying that if we force them to do business with Howard, the deal will be off the table. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on the members to make some decisions. I'm still pushing forward with supporting the notion that in a predominantly African-American community, we should have doctors of color, point blank. I'm going to walk back in the room and push my colleagues to think the same, and hopefully we can come to some agreements by the 18th to ensure that this hospital go forward. But yesterday we had 2 people shot in Ward 8. The day before, another person shot in Ward 8. So the need for trauma services, we have some of the highest health disparities in the country. We need this hospital to go through, and I'm sure what that's going to look like. We're looking forward to negotiate.
Dr. Mighty, what's next for Howard University? How are you going to keep pressing and pushing this issue?
So we're going to continue to work with the council members and with the district government and the mayor's office to, again, make sure that we're party to any final deal at the table so that we can be there to provide care that we've provided for probably the longest of anyone in the city who still exists, as one of our hospitals who have been around for 150 years just recently determined that they were going to close their doors. So we want to be there, but we are more than happy to work with everyone to just make sure that we ensure that this deal is done properly.
All right, then. Gentlemen, we certainly appreciate you joining us here on the show. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, there's some things that actually get your attention, and one of those things is this video I saw this morning of Viola Davis. Now, yesterday, The Hollywood Reporter held a breakfast honoring women in entertainment. Now, Viola Davis was honored with the Sherry Lansing Leadership Awards. In doing her speech, she courageously spoke up for women of color and Black women in Hollywood. Not only that, she made it real uncomfortable for a lot of the white folks in Hollywood with what she had to say. I want to go to my panel, Teresa Lundy. I want to start with you first. Viola Davis, let's just say, letting them know how she really feels.
Viola Davis is 53, young, strong. What she did on that platform for The Hollywood Reporter was literally tell every woman in that audience, no matter what color, that I am a leader, I am purposeful, and I am daring, and that's why you awarded me today. When I see her, you know, I actually had to look back at some of her early work, and even in the sense that, you know, we didn't see her as, you know, in the last couple of years in like The Help, How to Get Away with Murder, and those leading roles, but we saw her kind of in those back end roles. And so when she came onto the platform and told us, like, look, do not tame me, right? And she's there with this beautiful smile, this big afro, this leather jacket, saying, you know, looking very opposite of what everybody else looked like in the audience, but also saying to everyone to give them another chance, to be who they are and allow them to bring what you're trying to tell, especially the filmmakers, trying to tell to these massive audience that everybody individually is cultured, very different, and that's what needs to be excelled. So she is a phenomenal woman, amongst many others, but I think she is she walks the walk and talks the talk. So I'm excited, especially to kind of end we're not really ending 2018 yet, but that speech right there was as a good ender for me.
Greg Carr, I want to go to you. I mean, obviously, folks in that room were kind of like, we're supposed to clap on this. I mean, she was making it perfectly clear that y'all ain't doing right by us.
Right.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Viola Davis is becoming a transformational figure, a watershed figure. I mean, let's put her in a little bit of context with a couple of things. She and her husband, Julius, are doing something that Tim and Daphne Reed attempted to do a generation before. Tim Reed, our frat brother, again, talking about Alpha. But they are trying to create a space for people to create, for our people to create, an independent space. Viola Davis, the reason I say she's a transformational figure is because she does, as Teresa just named a couple of the projects that she's in that make her beyond the ability to silence. She's on network television, she's on blockbuster movies, and just like Denzel Washington, she's a stage-trained actress, which means she's on Broadway. So if you look at her, there's part Ruby Dee, there's part Cicely Tyson, and then you have with her husband Julius this Tim and Maxwell, or, you know, Daphne Reed dimension emerge, and then something she said among many other things in this class that she taught for about 12 minutes the other night. Something she said very important. She said, "Not me as Viola Davis, me as a black woman." That distinguishes her from individuals. You can get an Issa Rae, you can get a Chad Boseman, but when she says me as a black woman, the thing that knits this all together is the collective force. She's using her platform, in other words, to shatter these ceilings. And she's the next generation of that effort, brother.
Eugene?
You know, she walked in and she issued free smoke to the entire Hollywood industry. You know, I don't want to, make it seem like I'm, belittling her by comparing her to a man, but I would consider her the Jay-Z of black female actresses. I mean, she walked in and said, listen, the crux of her speech was, listen, I'm going through this so the next generation doesn't have to, but I'm not just talking about it. I'm going to create that space, which is absolutely necessary in 2018, where, a lot of the creative spaces are closing in on black creatives. So, I applaud her 110%, and I'm excited to see what comes down the pipeline.
All right, then. Let's talk now about, of course, the Golden Globe. The Golden Globe nominations are out today, and 4 black-themed movies were nominated for Best Picture. Pretty good, but some folks are thinking that African-American performers should have gotten more nominations. Here's a list of African-Americans who did get nominated for Golden Globes. Again, Best Picture, Black Panther, Black Klansman, If Beale Street Could Talk, and Green Book. Now, that could probably be a first that when it comes to the Best Motion Picture Drama, all of those are movies, of course, led by African Americans. Now, John David Washington, Best Performance by an Actor in a Motion Picture Drama for Black Klansman. Regina King, Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role, If Beale Street Could Talk. Mahershala Ali, I always get that name a little bit wrong. Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role for Green Book. Spike Lee. First of all, hold up, I'm sorry. Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role? Why? How in the hell was Lee in a supporting role when he was the lead? Okay. All right. Spike Lee, Best Director in a Motion Picture Drama for Black Klansman. Barry Jenkins, Best Screenplay Drama, If Beale Street Could Talk. Kendrick Lamar for Best Original Song Motion Picture, All the Stars, Black Panther. Regina King, Best Performance by an Actress in a Limited Series for 7 Seconds. Donald Glover, Best Performance by an Actor in a Television Series, Atlanta. Tandy Newton, Best Performance by an Actress in Limited Series, Westworld. So congratulations to all of them for those nominations for the Golden Globes. I'm still trying to figure out how Ali was the Best Supporting. So they're saying the guy who was driving him was Best Actor? Okay. All right, folks. Let's talk about Tyler Perry. He has a present for some folks in Atlanta. And so if you were in Atlanta and you were in a store and all of a sudden Tyler Perry walked in, check this out.
So I was trying to do this anonymously, but due to some circumstances, y'all know how nothing stays secret these days. So I just wanted to go ahead and tell you, if you have a layaway at the Walmart at 844 Cleveland Avenue in East Point, Georgia, in Atlanta, or if you have a layaway at the Walmart at 7001 Concourse Parkway in Douglasville, Georgia. If you have a layaway at either place, and it was in there as of 9:30 this morning, it was already in layaway before 9:30 this morning, I have paid for all of your layaways for Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody. You got to go into the Walmart, get your layaway, pay a penny, 1 penny, and you get your layaway. I know it's hard times. A lot of people are struggling. I'm just really, really grateful to be able to be in a position to do this. So God bless you. Go get your stuff. Merry Christmas.
See, Greg, there's a whole bunch of people who don't really know about layaway.
Brother.
I mean, if you grew up in the 70s and the
Nashville,
80s,
Tennessee,
60s,
baby.
70s, 80s,
Yes,
you know,
sir.
when credit cards became a big thing,
Come on.
it's like layaway went away. So those of us who remember layaway, we know what that was like.
Yes, sir. Nashville, Tennessee, Harvey's. They ain't even in business no more. Kane, Sloan. I can give them shout-outs because they don't exist anymore. My mom and daddy, hard-working black women and men in Nashville, going down there, put that $1 down, put that $25 down to make your Christmas beginning in March, beginning in June. What Tyler Perry has done, put your money where your mouth is. Brother, when you say layaway in the South, the North, anywhere else poor people are, you're telling people, I don't just care about y'all, I'm showing you how I care. These people going to get their stuff out layaway, man. Yeah, young people, go Google that. Google layaway, and you'll understand. Okay, or ask your grandmother.
Well, and then again, of course, there was nothing worse when you were not for Teresa. Do you remember layaway?
I do not. But
Okay, yeah, I ain't talking to you then. Okay, Eugene, you too damn young to remember layaway as well. See, that's
The thing is,
that's the problem.
but listen, I do understand layaway. I do understand layaway very, very well.
What, you read about it in a book?
No.
Googled it.
I put it this way. One of the things that my parents have done over the years, they've instilled the stories of their upbringing. And you know, my dad, you know, at one point in time was one of the only breadwinner in the house. And so, you know, every Christmas he would try to lay away something, and you know, over the couple months, you know, he'll get everybody one thing, and you know, use layaway to pay for it. So.
Well, Bomb, here's the problem. See, I don't know what the hell you just said. That was a waste of breath right there.
What happened,
So,
Roland? How long has it been, bro?
that was nothing like having something in layaway and then your ass outgrew it.
Oh, man.
Y'all didn't have
Oh,
enough money to
turn
get
it.
it out in time. And then that was nothing like being a kid growing up and you had something in layaway and then you would go to the store just to look at it.
Yes.
You couldn't wear it. And see, Greg talked about that store. That was a department store. It was called Wieners in Houston, where a lot of stuff was the same thing. WEINER''S, sort of the same thing. And so, yeah, a whole bunch of folks out there definitely got flashback memories of what it was like layaway. Because Tyler paid off for Christmas. That was nothing like when your layaway was paid off like in June. It felt like Christmas.
Yes, I was going to say, what about them Easter suits, brother? You put your Easter suit on layaway right after Christmas. And if you outgrew it, man.
Gene, I know you had an Easter suit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I had a credit card.
No. You know doggone well, you had an Easter suit as well with them damn socks with the little lace on the socks, too. Don't front.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And look, and on the East
I don't
Coast.
care what generation of blackness you in, you know damn well you had an Easter suit and an Easter dress.
That's right. And in Mississippi and in West Philadelphia, some gators, and they might all be lemon, brother.
Hey, folks, be sure to support Roland Martin Unfiltered by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com to join our Bring the Funk fan club every single hour.
Oh, that's from West Philly.
Your fan club goes to make this show possible. I'm here broadcasting in New York City. Today I was on Karen Hunter's show on Sirius XM Radio. Also was sitting on a panel that's future television news here in New York. Tomorrow, got some meetings here as well. Then I'll be going to watch Kerry Washington on Broadway tomorrow in a play directed by Kenny Leon. And so Kerry she was begging her brother, texting me, look, you gotta come. I'm like, all right, Kerry, I'm gonna be there. So that's why one of the reasons why I'm here in New York City. But again, what this show is about, folks, is bringing you stories and perspectives you're not going to see anywhere else. Again, I'm sure the other cable networks, they're not talking to the new mayor of Little Rock. They're not talking about really in-depth what's happening in North Carolina. And they sure as hell aren't talking about what's happening at Howard University. There's only one show that gives you this kind of news, this kind of perspective every single day. And that's Roland Martin Unfiltered. But here's the piece. We have to support it. We have to make it ours. We must fund our freedom. And so what we want you to do is go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, and you can give whatever amount you want to give. I saw some folks who, while we were on the air, were actually contributing to what we are doing, and I certainly appreciate that. Thank you so very much. So again, if you would go there, join our fan club, and here's what we're going to start next week. We put together a video of all of the members of our Bring the Funk fan club, and we're going to run that video during the show at least once a day to thank them for making this possible. And so we want you, so whether it's 50, whether it's 40, 30, 20, 10, or if you want to give 500, 1,000, it doesn't matter what it is, it's up to you. This is about us having out a show from our perspective, covering our issues, and so we definitely want you to support it. All right, folks, I got to go. You have an absolutely great day. I'll talk to y'all later. Holla!